All right, let's talk about a tool that has been an absolute game changer for so many Java developers, Hibernate ORM. We're going to break down what it is, why it even exists, and, most importantly, how it can make your coding life a whole lot easier.
So let me ask you a question. If you've ever worked on a Java project, have you had that moment where you just sigh because you know you have to write the same database connection code again? It's that feeling of, here we go again, writing the same lines over and over and over.
Well, that feeling, that endless, repetitive chunk of code, it actually has a name. We call it the SQL boilerplate problem. And it's this mountain of code that always seems to stand between your cool application logic and the data it needs to work.
I mean, just look at this. To do something as simple as saving one little object using the traditional JDBC approach, you have to do the whole song and dance. Open a connection, write out the SQL statement by hand, be super careful setting every single parameter, execute it, and then, if you're doing it right, you have to handle all the possible errors and clean up your resources. It's just a crazy amount of work for one simple action.
Yeah, I can practically hear you nodding your head right now. This whole manual process isn't just a pain to write, it's also super easy to make a mistake. It clutters up your beautiful code and totally distracts you from what you're actually trying to build, the real features of your app.
But why? Why do we even need all that boilerplate code in the first place? Well, it's because we're basically trying to smash two fundamentally different worlds together, the world of our code and the world of our database. Think about it. On one side, you've got your Java code. It thinks in terms of objects, right? Classes, fields, methods. That's its language. But then you have the database, and it speaks a totally different language. It thinks in tables, rows, and columns. This mismatch, this is the root cause of all that complexity. They just don't speak the same language.
And this is exactly where the idea of Object Relational Mapping, or ORM, comes into play. The best way to think of an ORM is as a perfect, real-time translator. It just sits right in the middle between your code and your database, and it handles all the messy translation work automatically. It lets your Java objects and your database tables finally have a conversation.
So, while ORM is the concept, Hibernate is the powerful, super popular tool that actually is that translator in the Java world. It's the magic piece of the puzzle we've been looking for.
And the way it works is actually pretty brilliant. You just take your student.java class, and with a few simple notes, you basically tell Hibernate, hey, this class, it maps to the student table over in the database. And that's it. From that moment on, Hibernate takes over. It writes and manages all the complicated SQL for you. You get to keep thinking in objects, and it handles the database stuff. To put it as simply as possible, Hibernate just takes care of that entire messy translation layer. It makes working with your database feel like a natural part of your Java code, not some separate, annoying task.
Okay, so let's see what this really looks like. Because the difference between the old way and the Hibernate way, well, it's pretty dramatic.
You remember this mess, right? All these lines of code, managing connections, writing SQL by hand, just to save one student. This is the world without our translator. It's a lot of work.
And now, check this out. This is the world with Hibernate. One single, beautiful, clean line of Java. Session.save student object. That is literally it. All that boilerplate we saw before, poof, it's gone. Hibernate handles all of it for you behind the scenes.
And that, right there, is the big win for any developer. You're not stuck in the weeds, writing and debugging SQL anymore. You can just focus on what you do best, writing clean, smart, object-oriented Java code.
You know, when you get rid of all that boilerplate, it's more than just having cleaner code. It honestly feels like you've just been given a new superpower as a developer. Let's talk about what that really means for you and your projects.
The benefits are just huge. First off, you're writing way less code, which is always a good thing. You're also preventing whole categories of common SQL mistakes because Hibernate is generating the queries for you. But the most important thing is this. You get to spend your brain power on the business logic, the features that your users actually care about, which just makes you so much more productive.
So I'll just leave you with this question. Once you take away one of the biggest, most annoying roadblocks in building an application, what happens? It frees you up to think bigger, to be more creative. So with the database part made easy, what are you going to build next?